everyone. This is Manjit Kaur. I work for Xobin as a lead enterprise relations, and we run Xobin Talks, which is nothing but letting people know about the HR tools and technology and how hiring can become more and more easy. Okay, with the experts I bring on to the table, and we discuss about how we can make a difference in hiring and making employers succeed. And today we have with us a special guest. His name is Dr. Mark A. Smith. He is a PhD, a respected industrial organizational psychologist with 25 years of experience in HR research and consulting. His primary areas of expertise involve strategic research approaches, test development and validation, and leadership assessment and development. Throughout his career, he has worked with all levels of employees, from hourly rate to executive level. He joined Shrum in 2018 after spending most of his career in HR consulting roles. So today I'm with him, and I invited him so that we can pick his brain and make our hiring little easy. And his topic is basically dig deeper into skill assessments. So Mark, over to you. Welcome to Xobin Talks, and please go ahead and talk about yourself a bit.
All right. So thanks for having me. I was excited when you reached out, and I get to talk today about, my favorite things, which is tests, assessments, and validation. And, you mentioned I have a PhD in organizational psychology, and, so I started getting into the field 25 plus years ago, and it was really for the purposes of tests, assessments, and validation. And that's what I've been able to do in my career. And again, as you had mentioned, working with lots of different companies on lots of different things, but so much of it focused on tests and assessments, which, is obviously very, very relevant for what you guys do as well.
That's interesting. And I see you have spent almost in the research itself, it is showing so many years of experience. So what your understanding have been so far into skill development or assessment, and how do you feel it makes a difference in an organization?
Yeah. Again, have been doing it long enough where when I first started, so much of the assessment area was focused on cognitive ability, knowledge, skill, and as I started to get into it more, the assessments have also developed on the other side. So the personality, the sort of softer competencies that aren't cognitive in nature, but are very important. And so like safety orientation, and how well you team with other people, those are highly relevant, and they're just as relevant as the cognitive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're able to have good assessments of the softer skills and demonstrate that they are also valid and important for jobs.
Okay, so how do you think level assessment importance in an organization? Do you suggest that they go for it when they are hiring somebody, or you think it is also useful for existing employees for their training and development?
Right. I mean, it's both, especially when it comes to something like skills and knowledge. If we're talking about cognitive ability, that's something else, because that's hard to develop. And so if a company is focused on cognitive ability, you really have to assess that in your applicants and bring in the right people.
Yes, true.
If you're talking about skills and knowledge, those are the things that you can go through training, get experience, and you can really increase your competency in it. And so that, to me, is an important difference between an ability assessment versus a skill assessment. Is the skills are much more readily trainable The ability, yeah, that's sort of tough to improve and develop. But the skills, yeah, those are the things you can develop. And then accordingly, if you want to know, okay, what is the skill level of my team on, this thing or that thing, yeah, you can send them through a short assessment, and then that will tell you at a group level or at an individual level, should these people go through more training.
So do you think it is important not only to do the skill assessment, because in that we will only understand the capability of the person based on the skills required for the job, right? But at the same time, when we are talking about psychometric, where you cannot teach anybody anything, right? You are trying to understand their nature so that you can do diversity hiring, you can understand and maintain the same work place culture which are in place. What is your say on this, psychometric level testing importance for hiring nowadays?
It's very important. And so when I go back 25 years to when I started, the notion that we could even assess, again, the psychometric, the softer skills, the non-cognitive skills, the notion that we could even assess that in a hiring context was something that was downplayed. And a lot of people in the field, or as an organizational psychologist, a lot of people in our field had said that, yeah, you can't really do it. And again, we've shown over the years that we can do it. And there are a number of different ways that we've shown that we can do it. And again, going back early in my career, working with a company who had a number of clients who were dealing with dangerous jobs where safety was terribly important. And the client there wanted a measure of safety orientation. So they hire people who weren't mavericks, who weren't, willing to bend the rules, were going to follow the safety rules, and therefore would be more safe. And so we had help with that. And what we were able to show is the people who they hired based on the safety orientation assessment, later on, they had fewer actual safety incidents. And so it's not just they had better safety orientation scores, they were safer. But the interesting thing about that one is it was a big company doing a lot of hiring, and there was a lot of pressure from the hiring managers. And the hiring managers weren't happy with the safety orientation assessment because it was failing some people. It was saying, they're kind of risky. And they didn't like that. And so they pressured their HR department to get rid of the assessment. And so they had the assessment for 1 year. They showed that it maybe not caused, but it was associated with lower safety incidents. The hiring manager said, we don't like this in the hiring battery, which was a bad idea. So they took it out of the hiring battery. The next year, the crew of people that they hired, their safety issues went right back up. So the safety issue started here. They hired people based on safety orientation. It reduced the safety issues. They dropped that. The safety issues went back up.
Oh, okay.
The next year, they realized what happened. They re-implemented the safety assessment, and the safety issues went right back down. And this is what we would call in sort of in psychology, a quasi-experiment. It's a quasi-experiment that we could have never designed ourselves. And it sort of happened. And we were fortunate enough to be in the position and be in a position and aware of what was going on. So we say, oh my goodness, look at the safety incidents. It went down. Oop, the safety incidents went back up. The safety incidents went back down. Again, you could never design a study like that, but sometimes the real world happens, causes a study, and a very compelling evidence that hiring based on safety orientation was important. And it didn't just feel important. You could demonstrate it. It was important. It was important because it led to less safety issues.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I was reading, a study by Robert Half, and they were talking about 85% of the HR, they agree. And I mean, they agree that, okay, we do bad hire. And that is why Robert Half also suggested that go through, assessment before you hire, because employers are still unaware about the cost they are incurring due to bad hires, and
right,
they are understanding, but they are not accepting it to take a decision on that firmly. What is your take on that, based on your research?
Yeah, it's assessments in the hiring context. Again, both the cognitive and the non-cognitive, both the skills and knowledge, ability, and the personality related things, both of those are necessary. And when you go into companies and you talk to hiring managers and you ask the question, what does a bad hire look like for you, or what does it take for somebody to get fired here? Not theoretically, but like tell me about somebody who was a bad fit, or somebody who you thought was a bad hire. So often it's not that they didn't have the knowledge. It's not that they didn't have the ability even. It was they were a bad teammate, or they violated our safety rules, or these other things. And so really when you look at an employee holistically, it's the ability to do the job, but it's more than that. It's the willingness to be a good teammate, to be a good employee, which is again broader than are you able to do the job.
Exactly, like adopting to the culture, liking to work, right? You can't motivate anybody to work. They need to work on their own, right? I mean, you seeing that people who are succeeding in their career are those people who love their job. That is what we keep on seeing, right? So yes, we need to be very, very cautious when we are hiring. And there are so much technology available now to streamline the hiring process. Then why not? Okay, so now I have an interesting question for you, because I know I want to know about your testimony for the US House of Representatives last summer. Why don't you, tell me about that?
Yeah. So that was an interesting situation. So the U.S. Congress, is broken up into two sides: the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the way that they talk about potential legislation or investigate issues is often through the use of committees. And so there are a relatively small number of committees on the Senate side and on the House side. And one of these committees on the House side is the Committee on Education and the Workforce. And one of their priorities has been what they're referring to as skills-based hiring. So they decided to have a hearing based on skills-based hiring, and they were looking for experts to talk. And I don't know how they got my name, but they got my name, and they reached out, and we had some really good preliminary conversations, and ultimately they said, hey, can you come and testify in front of a bunch of members of Congress? And I said, I would love to. It sounds daunting and a little bit scary, but it was a great experience. So yeah, it was this summer. Didn't have much time to prepare, and they asked for written testimony, so we could put together a written document. And there was oral testimony, and then there was questions and answers from the representatives. So, and I can share the link with you. But there's a link to my written testimony, and the written testimony was really about skills assessments. Some of the things that we were just talking about.
Let's share that. We would love to add that testimony which you have wrote, for the US, definitely. So it will really add value to the readers and the audience to understand more about how it adds value. So I would love to add the link so that people who are watching this, they can also go visit and read about the testimony. So
Okay.
that's great, Mark. And how, why they wanted to learn from you? What was their challenge? What was their pain point, which they wanted to understand,
Right.
from you? Because you have so much of experience in that area.
Well, right. So the focus of this hearing was about skills-based hiring, and when they're talking about skills-based hiring, it's really not hiring just based on whether somebody has a traditional education degree or whether they have, X number of years of experience, whether they have years of experience. It's going further than that. It's saying, okay, do they have the actual skills? So, let's say that somebody goes to university, gets an accounting degree. Well, the assumption is, okay, they have a high level of knowledge in at least basic accounting. But lots of people graduate. Some people graduate sort of just barely, and some people graduate with a lot of knowledge. So some people, they just don't retain it very well. And so the assumption that just because you graduated with a particular degree doesn't necessarily mean that you have the skills. We can directly assess those skills, right? You can directly assess those skills. And so not just looking for if somebody graduated, but do they have the skills? And then it goes further, because in this day and age, we are in the information age.
True.
And there are so many ways that you can pick up knowledge, you can increase your skills. That isn't necessarily from university.
Yes.
And so, okay, I need somebody to do this, and this. Well, the assumption that they have to go through a traditional university program to get those things is often not true anymore. I can go on YouTube and watch a bunch of videos and I can pick up as many skills as somebody going through the university. Now, that's not always the case. There are some specialized areas, specialized skills that you probably need to directly interface with professors and stuff. But you see a lot of job postings for, like, and I'll just use this as an example, for salespeople. And they're looking for people who have a college degree.
Yes.
But not any particular college degree. They just want a college degree. And then at some point, you got to sort of say, I have a question. What are you assuming that college degree gives you? Well, a broad level of knowledge, or to show that they can finish something difficult. And you go, okay, that at some level is fair, but there are other more direct ways of assessing that broad level of knowledge, some specific skills, whatever it is relevant for the job, and some of the non-cognitive things that we were talking about before.
Okay. So, that means even the government is thinking about it, that why education, we are keeping one side, keeping the education to judge a person's capability to perform a particular task, whether it's fair enough or not. This is, as a layman, I understand this, right? This is my understanding. Okay, you have a college degree, but are you capable of performing certain tasks? Is it right? The task which you are going to, apply for a job, does it require the things which you learn in your college, right? That is what might be they are trying to understand. And also, I think our education system everywhere, all over the world, needs to, needs to go through an upgrade, because you said, nowadays, right? YouTube, specifically technical skills, you can learn in 2 days. right? You become a designer, you go, if you have a creative mind, you just go learn the tool and you can get started, right? So I think it needs revision in every place, not only the hiring mindset is changing, but still I think, many companies, big organizations are still stuck to, okay, college degrees must. What is your take on that? Like, do you see the organizations are taking a decision like that, or only government, what the research thinking about this?
In the past few years, there have been a lot more companies interested in this. And then after I, went through this testimony this summer, I had a number of people from different companies reaching out and were really interested in it. And what surprised me is some very large, very technical, important companies reaching out about this, and they're like, we're on board. We want to do this. But you can't just say, okay, well, we're just going to drop our degree requirements. No, something else has to replace that. And so a more direct assessment of the skill, in my mind, a more direct assessment of the skills, that's really what needs to replace it. But there are a couple of different ways to think about that even. So one way, as we were kind of talking about, is a company can put together an assessment for their applicants or for their current employees. What is the skill level of these individuals? And another way to think about it is through like certification programs, through credentialing programs, and there an individual can go maybe take some training, go through a test and assessment, pass it, and get a credential from a place that isn't a university. And we really see this in technical spaces. So like if somebody is in IT, if you talk to somebody in IT, people outside the field don't necessarily realize it, but it's incredible how much training they go through. And they go through this training because everything changes all the time.
Yes, they need to keep learning.
They need to keep learning, and then therefore they need to keep demonstrating their skills. So they need to keep learning, and then they need to keep demonstrating. And so if a company uses a lot of Microsoft products, they use the Microsoft learning system, and then the Microsoft sort of IT credentialing system as well. So Microsoft has a bunch of tests that they're always updating for IT people to certify different specialists on different products at different levels. And so in the IT area, when people are hiring, it's pretty common to look for specific credentials, specific certifications. And Google does the same thing. And there are other companies out there doing the same thing. And so that even takes the onus away from the hiring organization and moves it to the individual, which gets a little tricky in terms of like who's paying for things, and is this because they would take it with them if they would leave? Who do they get paid for going through this training and through the certifications? But it changes who is responsible for the skill development and the skill assessment.
Yes, I think it needs to be simplified more. Like, as you said, whether you have done your college degree you have, or wherever you have learned the skills from, if you take a assessment and you get a certification that, okay, it has been validated, your skill is legit, then, that is the thing you need to showcase when you are applying for a job. I think that will make more sense, right? And up from that doesn't end there, because you can't hire skills. You need a personality. So let's go for a personality as well, so that you have a holistic approach towards building a right workforce who matches your vibe in the organization, right? So that everybody can stay loyal and work for well, and they succeed in their career, and also company grows. Apart from that, what else you would like to add, Mark? How you are passionate about this? And we are talking about education, and you have gone through PhD. So you tell me about your, your passion of learning so much.
Right, right. So, in this whole process, what I think is terribly important is demonstrating that the assessments that you're using are relevant for the specific job, and that sort of demonstration of job relevance is what I would refer to as validation. And validation is a term that a lot of people use for a lot of different things. But again, for me as an organizational psychologist, I think of validation and validity evidence as the demonstration that an assessment is relevant for the job. And and those become interesting projects to work on. So I spent again a large part of my career in consulting, and we would help companies validate assessments. And one of the real interesting ways to do it is what we would refer to as criterion related validation. And that it's relatively straightforward, but it's a tricky process, and it's sort of scientific in nature. So you get a group, and there are different ways to do this, but the most straightforward way is you get a group of job incumbents to take assessment, and then you get a measure of job performance for the same people. And then if you have test information and you have job performance, and then you can statistically correlate. So does how well somebody performs on this test predict who is a good performer, who's not a good performer? And again, that's what we refer to as criterion related validation. And it's very powerful evidence. And so I used to work with a lot of engineers. They were just companies that had a lot of engineers. And when I would explain this process to them, all the engineers would be like, "Oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. This is exactly how you should do it." But and so that it always made me feel good. The engineers sort of always approved the process. But I've also seen engineers try to run the process themselves, and they just don't know what like reasonable expectations are for what sort of magnitude of relationship should you be able to find. And so while the engineers like to talk about the process and will generally approve the process, they need some help in actually running a validation study like that. And again, that's what I spent a lot of time in my career doing, is helping companies validate these assessments. And it's a really interesting process. It gets kind of tricky, and you need some knowledge and experience to know, okay, how is the best way to do this?
Right. I think job specific, what you're saying is really interesting. And that's why we included that as well. Because knowing one particular skill doesn't make you expert of that particular job role, right? Job role makes a lot of good research activity you're doing. And see, we are also evolving our platform accordingly. So I'm happy to know that we are doing the right thing from you, Mark. Really, it has been amazing to talk to you and learn about you. So now tell me about what is your next area of interest. I know that you were in Shram for a long time, and now, so what is next for you?
Well, yeah, so getting back into helping companies implement and validate assessments. So I'm in the process right now of helping some companies do this. I'm put together a new knowledge test, which I think is really interesting, because the future, as you know, we'll often talk about it, is AI, right? And so how this works with assessments, and it's tricky. It's not necessarily straightforward, and we're going to run into a lot of laws, different areas, states and countries. Europe is going to have different sets of rules about the use of AI when it comes to assessments, and managing that, helping companies manage that, and then how to appropriately use AI in this whole process. Really, that's the next phase of this whole thing.
Okay, sounds good. So, almost 30 minutes. We are on time, Mark. It has been great speaking with you, and your discussion was amazing. You have shared a couple of great information, and you have also had a lot of inputs about skill assessment. It is not so simple. The process itself is, needs take time to understand people. What you're doing is really amazing. I wish you all the best for your future, and I appreciate your time, Mark. Thank you so much.
All righty, thank you.